There's 152 of us standing virtually together right now. We're going to move to a candle lighting ritual, and we're going to name groups that are here with us tonight, and we'll have 6 candle lightings.
Friends, good evening. We join together this evening in this intense period of our calendar to participate in the sacred act of memory on this Yom HaShoah. And we do that in our tradition in many ways. Traditionally on this night, we do it through sharing a story. And as I listened to Elad and Abigail play that theme from Schindler's List that has become synonymous with the Shoah, I think about the minor key of Jewish history, the stories of suffering that we will tell. But there are also stories of great hope. And I reflect on a story, a woman named Shoshana Ovitz, who in August celebrated her 104th birthday. And she asked that she was a survivor of Auschwitz. And she asked her eldest granddaughter if she could compile a list of all of her descendants so that she could pray on their behalf. And unbeknownst to her, they had agreed that they would all gather, all of the descendants would come together at the Kotel, the Western Wall in Jerusalem. And they were photographed there. And there were over 400 descendants from Shoshana Ovitz. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. It was the story of a triumph of life over death. This evening, we will hear Peter's story. And Peter, I want to thank you in advance for sharing your story. It is just as much a story of the triumph of life over death, a shift from the minor key of our history to a major key. I want to thank you in advance for joining us. I want to thank Karin, our shlicha, for bringing us this program. And I'm going to turn it over to Karin to say a few words about what we're doing tonight and to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Rabbi Zuckerman. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. There's a few internet glitch in my side, so I'm sorry for that. Thank you for joining this program tonight. Tonight is supposed to be a bit of a different Yom Hashoah program. We're proud to be hosting a Zikaron BaSalon, which in Hebrew means memories in the living room. And it's not because of the Corona time. It's actually a social initiative that started a few years back by a group of young adults who said, in order for us to bring it here, back to our life, we have to be active in our memory of the Holocaust. And it's simple. It must be informal. It must be active. Offer a meaningful way for us to all kind of connect together with friends, with community members, and guests. And tonight that we're going to do just that. We're going to hear from Peter, and then we're going to take it back to us to a meaningful discussion to kind of talk to members of our clergy that agreed to join us, and between us of what's the greatest challenges that we're facing today, and how has isolation impacted our life then and now. And I hope we all have a very meaningful program. I want to say thank you again so much for Peter for joining us. I know it's very important for him, even in the States, to make all the efforts, technological efforts, to speak to us. So Peter was born in Pécs in Hungary in 1933. In April 1944, he was placed in a ghetto in Hungary with all the Jews of Pécs, where he stayed for 2 months. On July 9, 1944, when he was 11 years old, he was deported to Auschwitz with his mother, sister, and twin brother Thomas. When they arrived in Auschwitz, after 4 days packed in cattle cars, Dr. Josef Mengele chose twins from the prisoner selections lines to be used for his research. Some of the twins were subjected to painful injections, endured cruel surgeries, and suffered through countless other brutal experiments. In May of 1949, Mr. Somogyi and his brother moved to Israel. He lived in Israel for 7 years, then spent 2 years in England, then more than a decade in Canada. He's married. has 2 children and 4 grandchildren. Peter, just before Peter and Anna's wife, Peter's wife Anna is here. Before we begin, I want to thank you for sharing your story. Tell you from my own perspective that my own family also comes from Hungarian descent and escaped Auschwitz, and to this day with my career choices and the fact that I'm an Israel emissary, but I do not know my family stories as my grandmother could not find the words. And so I want to thank you on behalf of all of us that you share your stories so we can all connect to our collective stories. Thank you, Peter.
Okay. Should I start?
Yes, Peter, you can start, and Anna, you can share your screen now and do the PowerPoint together.
I was born in 1933, the same year Hitler came to power. Hitler at that time promised the German nation 1,000 years of greater Germany. However, it lasted only 12 years from 1933 to 1945, but during these 12 years, Hitler and his accomplices went on a killing agenda that cost their life over 40, maybe 50 million people, mostly 6 million Jews, a lot of children involved in it. But I want to show you my family first. I start with my family. My mother, my father, my sister, Alice, my twin brother, Thomas, and myself. My father owned a very successful business. We had a very comfortable life. We were not rich, but really comfortable. And we owned a beautiful home and everything that a real nice Jewish family could achieve at that time. 1939, September 1st was the first day I went to school. The city I lived in had a Jewish elementary school. September 1st also was the first day that World War II started. That's the same date. But being in the Jewish elementary school was good. But as soon as the 4 years of elementary school finished, I had to go into a high school, a gymnasium. Unfortunately, it was a parochial school, and the boys on that school didn't very much like Jewish kids, and they were constantly harassed, constantly beaten up. But I had to grin and bear it. On 1944, March 19, everything changed. Hell broke loose because the German army invaded Hungary. Immediately they started the German anti-Jewish laws. Within a week we had to wear the Jewish star. My father was taken away. Unbeknownst to us, we had no idea where he was going. Later on, he arrived in Dachau. I know they arrived at Dachau, but the family was starting breaking up. In about a month and a half after the Germans came in, we had to leave our homes and went into a ghetto. We stayed in the ghetto for quite about 2.5, 3 months. I can't remember exactly the dates. All that I know that on July 4th, we are told to take anything that you can carry with yourself, with you, and we went into a military horse sty, where we stayed over there for 2 days. At that time, the My grandmother and all my aunts from the neighboring villages also joined us. On July 6th in the afternoon, again, take only what you can carry with you. We were loaded into cattle cars and about 70 to 80 crammed into there. I can remember one thing, that maybe every family got as one bread for the duration. We didn't know what duration is going to be because we had no idea where we're going. We had no idea how long the trip will take. All what I know that it was middle of July, very hot. There was no water. The babies were crying, including myself and my brother. Well, we cried a little bit because we didn't know what's happening. We had no idea where we're going. All what I remember that they crammed into that cattle car with only one bucket for sanitary use, and we were traveling about 3.5 days. I have no idea exactly how much. Finally, we arrived at a place where later on I found out it's called Auschwitz-Birkenau. They opened the cars, the cattle cars. We stepped out and we saw right away German soldiers with drawn guns and Häftlingen or prisoners in the prisoner guard. We had to get up and told us, schnell, schnell, fast, getting down, but leave all your belongings in the car, because as soon as we resettle you, we will send it after to you. However, never was a resettling. When I get out of the cattle car, the first thing that hit me was the smell. There was a terrible smell. I don't know, maybe it was burning something, but probably it was, as for later as I find out, it was burning bodies. Also, they saw that there was a very big building with a big chimney on top of it, spewing flames 9-10 feet high. And later on, first I thought it was a factory, but later on I found out it was a factory of death. As we were lined up, my mother saw that there was some selection going over there. So we asked my twin brother and myself, say you are not 11, but say you are 9 years old, maybe they will keep us together. However, it never happened. While we were standing in line, Mengele came around, asked for twins. My mother didn't know what to say, so waited. The Mengele came again, and when the third time Mengele came around, my mother said, yes, I do have twins. Immediately, 2 other soldiers grabbed us, took us away from my mother, put us into a small ambulance and drove us into the map. I had never, I didn't even have a chance to say goodbye to my mother. I never saw it, and that was the last time I saw my mother, my sister, and my rest of the family, but I never saw them again. We were taken to this is the map of Birkenau, the big camp. There's a little red line here that shows this is the barrack that I was taken into. That was a twins barrack. The moment we got into the barrack, the first thing was I lost my identity, and I was tattooed the number A17454. Maybe you can see it from here, A17454. And that was my as soon as that was done, the man who was in charge of us, Mengele, put one of the older twin. There was one older twin, about 29 or 30 years old, who used to be an officer in the Czech army, and he put the older twin boys, because we are only boys, the girls are on the other side of the track. He put in the charge, and he had introduced himself. And my very first question to him was, when can I see my mother? And without thinking too much, he just showed me to the chimney over there, showed me the light, and said, that's where your mother is. And that's when I find out that I will never see her again. Later on, that was mid-afternoon or late afternoon, and the dinner time came, and I haven't eaten for quite a while. I was hungry, but when I looked at what they gave us, I said, I will never be able to eat it. There's no way I can touch it. However, a day or so later, hunger took over and I started eating it. Then the man who was in charge of us showed the sleeping arrangements. Look at that, a section like that. The middle section was one of ours. We had 6 of us getting into the section tightly. So when one of us had to turn around, all of us had to turn. The next morning, first was the appel. 6 o'clock we get up, and every day we had to be counted. Make sure that the count is correct, because it didn't make any difference basically, because if somebody died in between, they will never, it didn't make any difference to them. And then the daily routine, the first, I think around 9 o'clock that morning, the first time we were taken to Dr. Mengele's office and started the experiments. What kind of experiment I will never find out. All what they did, they took blood from us, started measuring left and right, every part of our bodies. And that was the first time the meeting with Dr. Mengele. In the meantime, I show you the pictures over there. There's left side over there. This is one of the crematorium, the largest crematorium with the big chimney on top of it. The other side shows the crematorium itself. And the third one, I don't know, one of the buildings over there, I don't know what it was I think also crematorium. The daily routine started every morning, the appel, as I said, then we had to got our breakfast, and then we had to go to the washroom and wash every morning and make sure that we're absolutely clean. But because Mengele always wanted to have all of us, every one of us clean. So at a random moment when he asked any pair of the twins, we had to be clean and ready for him. On the way to the washroom every morning, there was I showed you the barrack, the little sign there. Next to it was a Mengele's office, and further down was other barrack over there, housing only people who looked like a skin and bone. They were told maybe there was an experiment how long can be. Yeah, they looked like that, most of them. Every morning while we went to the washroom, there was on the side of the road 6 to 8 dead bodies, all emaciated, thin, skin and bone, dead people. That's when I started seeing dead bodies, and later on, it's just, I don't know, you get stoned seeing dead bodies. Just couldn't even comprehend it anymore. Our daily life was just to survive. We didn't have to work, but we were. This is how some of the experiment after experiment the twins looked like. Lucky for us, lucky for my twin brother and myself, we got there much later, and some of those horrible experiments that Mengele did, we didn't get through with it. We didn't get it. Our daily life was just to exist for the pleasure of Dr. Mengele. As a matter of fact, the first time when we were lined up, when we arrived in Birkenau, and we were lined up, and I was interlined for the gas chamber, and I thought at that time that when Mengele pulled my twin brother and myself out of the line, that he saved my life. And I said, no, he didn't save my life. Mengele just kept me alive for his own stupid purposes, his experiments. Anyway, we right away, what happened is around September, one evening, the next to our lager, the F lager was the E lager, that was a gypsy lager. One night, the whole 1,000 or 1,500 gypsies were all gassed and burned during one night. In one night, they did the whole thing. And then a couple of days later, another SS officer came into the block. We had to line up totally naked, and he started showing people write up their names and not the name, just a number, and we knew that time that we are ready for also to the gas chamber, because when the whole selection was finished, they locked us up into another room, and we wait over there when the truck or whatever will come and take us to the gas chamber. I was very angry. I had a little pocket knife that was given to us to slice the bread, because when we got the daily ration of the bread, we had to slice it ourselves. I had that knife in my hand, and I said, I can't kill with it, but at least I will do some damage to one of the German soldiers who will be over next to me, because I had so much anger on me that unbelievable. We whiled away. Around October, I witnessed the blowing up the crematorium number 4, because it was so close to our building, our barrack, that I saw really everything. I saw also how the SS came afterwards, and they shot every single of the persons who blew up the crematorium. Excuse me. There was also, I can go back to the map again. There is a section up on top of that section over there called Canada. All the clothing, everything that was taken out from the cattle cars, everybody's belongings, also from the gas chamber, the undressing room, the gas chamber, all the clothing went all into that section of called Canada. I don't know why they called Canada, probably because it was Canada was a rich country, and the richness of clothing and everything was over there. And this is how they selected everything: shoes, glasses, even everything was selected. I'm sorry. It's okay. And about a week before liberation, for the first time we had to work, and our job was on a hand cart, loading the clothing onto those hand carts, and they drive it all the way to the railroad station to load it to Germany. It was a bitter cold. They were beating us. Schnell, make it faster. The SS was beating us. But next to me was standing a regular German army, the Wehrmacht, and all the men. I don't know why. He just put his hand in his pocket, took out a piece of sugar cube and gave it to me. That was the first time I saw some humanity. Sometimes some people were thinking different. Maybe that soldier had a child the same age as I am, and they seeing what we are suffering at that time, beating and everything. He just couldn't stand it any longer, probably. Anyway, a couple of days before, I don't know exact date, they emptied Birkenau itself. We all have lined up, and we looked. It seemed to be that it's going to be a death march, because anybody at the end of the line who was not able to walk, they shot them right away. All what we heard while I was waiting before we started walking, that the shooting. Non-stop, they shot everybody who was not able to walk. Then got the order to start moving. We started moving with the SS on both sides, with the guns drawn, and then something looked around, and it was already dark by the time we started walking. It was totally dark. And suddenly we didn't see any German soldiers. What happened? The Russians were coming so fast that they got the order, and they hightailed and they left us to ourselves, and they disappeared. So we started walking from Birkenau towards Auschwitz. Auschwitz, and went into those big buildings, into one room, and what happened? We were hungry. There was no kitchen anymore. 2 days before, there was no kitchen. We had no food. Until then, at least we had the daily routine of some food. It was never enough. Every night I went hungry to bed, or the bridge or whatever, it was not a bed. But I went hungry every night. I could have eaten more, but at least we had some. But ever since then, 2 days before or 3 days before liberation, there was no kitchen working anymore. So we just starved. That's how we started. That's why a day and a half after liberation, we asked the man who was in charge of us, please take us away from here, because A, if there is a German counterattack and they come back, we will not survive indefinitely. And secondly, there was no food, so we started walking. In the middle of the night, bitter cold, towards Krakow. It took us two and a half days to get to Krakow. Apparently, I don't remember, but according to my brother, towards the end, a truck picked us up into Krakow itself. Honestly, I don't remember. Somehow it doesn't come to me anymore. Anyway, we got into Krakow in a building. I still remember the address, Druga Ulica 37. We stayed over there, and luckily the man who was in charge of us, knowing the language, he was Czech, but he was able to converse with the Polish people, found a place where once a day we got some warm food. Finally, we had something to eat. But that wasn't enough. So what happened is we started walking the streets and knocking on doors. We go into buildings and knocking on doors and asking for a slice of bread. Once in a while, we got something. Most of the time, they just kicked us out, knowing that we are Jewish, and we Polish people, they didn't really like the Jewish people. This picture over there was taken. Well, let me go back first. After a week or 10 days being in Krakow, the man in charge of us found some transportation, sometimes on foot, sometimes on a truck, sometimes on the open railroad car. It took us from Auschwitz itself back to my hometown, close to 2.5 to 3 months, about something like that. In other words, it took us 3 days from my hometown to Auschwitz. It took us 2.5 to 3 months go back to my hometown. On that picture, the rucksack that one evening, just before the liberation, I don't know how I found the thread and needle and the scissor and cut off one of the covers and they sewed the side text, because everybody had at least one change of clothing. That Mengele made sure that we have, so we can wash our clothes and change it in between times. Anyway, we started coming home. When I arrived, my mother's cousin was already back in my hometown. We went into his house, and his idea was to take that picture right away. The next day, he took the picture, so it's quasi-memorialized how we looked like when we arrived back. And also, he was adamant about it that immediately we started going back to school. Don't tell what happened to you before. Just go back and start schooling again. Around September, I got word that my father survived Dachau. As I found out later on, he didn't want to come back because he knew that his family all gone. But found out, I don't know how, and I will never find out how he found out that his two twin children survived. So he came back. We went back to our own house, refurnished it because the furniture was all gone and they broken up. We refurnished it. My father remarried in 1947. And this is the picture of my family for my mother's side. What you can see here, it's the circled, only the ones that are circled survived. One of my uncles, my father, my twin brother, myself. All the rest of them far. And when I talk to the people around, I always had to ask, why these little kids that you see in this picture, why this little kid had to die? What was their punishment? Why were they punished that severely? Why did they have to die? Well, I never got the answer because that's a rhetoric question. Anyway, I got involved with the Zionist movement, and in 1949, around April, early April, escaped Hungary. We had to escape. We had to go through the borders during the night because there was no passport and they wouldn't let anybody anyway. So with the Zionist movement, we left Hungary. It took us about 6 weeks, but finally I did arrive in Israel on May 16, 1949. Exactly 1 year and the day that Israel became a nation, like 1948, May 15, and I was there 1949, May 16. We are taken into a camp where all the people who arrived on that ship, we were taken to that camp to decide who is going to where. Finally, we arrived into Kibbutz Matsuba, northern Israel, where I stayed for 2 years in the kibbutz. And then on my 18th birthday, I had to go into the army. I was in the army about close to 3 years. I had to sign up an additional 2 months. Usually it was 2 years and 6 months. But I had to sign up for 2 more years because I had to finish the officer school that I went through. 1953, I finished the army. I went into the civil life, and it was difficult to find a job, but I learned the trade, and with this trade, luckily I was able to find a job anywhere I want to go. Even when I arrived in 1958, I arrived in 1956, I left Israel. 1958, I went to England, and within a day or so, within a week or so, I got a job being an automobile electrician. I stayed in England for 2 years. After 2 years, my papers came for Canada. I stayed in Canada for 2 hours, 12 years. I met my wife over there. I married 58 years with my wife. We had 2 kids.
59.
Not yet, not yet. Very close to 59 years. Not yet. 59 years married, and 2 kids and 4 grandkids. And they.
Okay.
And in 1970, I got an offer and I came to the States, and ever since I'm in the States. First, we had an apartment in the Tarrytown, but later on we got a house in Pleasantville. I'm in this present house since that time. This is my new family. My brother, myself, my brother had 3 kids, has 3 kids and 5 grandchildren. I have 2 kids, 4 grandchildren and spouses. And this is my new family. They couldn't kill us. This is my Nekoma. This is my, how should I say, answer to all this murderous people that they just couldn't kill us. And as they say, Am Yisrael Chai. And that's my story. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Peter, I want to thank you for sharing your story and your family. And I would round up to 59 years if I were you, in terms of being married. Go with that.
Just to limit me. So yes.
You took the words out of my mouth in terms of conclusion. Am Yisrael Chai, and your story of survival and of those being able to continue the story and to share your story and to share the history of the Jewish people is inspiring. And I want to thank you. And
it is very difficult for me to say everything. I try to think about it. Whatever happens, it's always something else comes to my mind. Something else I'm talking about. It's never the same. It's always whatever I remember at the time.
Well, God willing, we'll have more opportunities for you to share your story. And I want to thank you. I want to thank Anna for joining us as well and for running the PowerPoint. And at this point, we are going to, as Karin described, we're going to break up into some discussion rooms for 10 or 15 minutes. And then we will come back together to conclude the program with the memorial prayer and El Malei Rachamim that Cantor Brook will recite, and we'll conclude with Mourner's Kaddish at the end. But for now, again, our gratitude, Peter and Anna, to you for sharing your story. And I believe magically we are going to be broken up into our discussion chat rooms. Give me the thumbs up. And okay. One of us. I want to welcome everyone back and thank you in our group, the people who were really sharing some very personal reflections, not just about Peter, not just about your presentation, but their own experiences. Before Cantor Brook recites the El Malei, the memorial prayer, I just want to share one thought with you as I was listening to a few people in our group speak, and the responsibility to tell these stories, Peter, that you told tonight. I was reading something today about a rabbi named Ephraim Oshri, who was a rabbi in the camps. I forget exactly what camp he was in, but he wrote a number of responses, legal, halachic legal questions that would come to him in the camps. And he wrote them, and then he hid them in a pipe and buried them, and came back after the war, dug them up, and we have that collection. And what the collection shows us is that life was continuing in the camps, and there were questions that came up. Post-war, he's a rabbi, I believe, in Montreal, and a question comes to him from someone who has a tattoo, a number tattooed on her arm, and wants to know whether it would be permissible to have the number removed, right, with the technology we have to remove tattoos. And Rabbi Oshry's answer was no, that you can't have the number removed, right? That we can't hide what happened, right, during the war. And I heard from a number of people in our group and others I knew in our group who have direct experiences with this, who have spent their lives telling these stories and making sure that we don't hide this away and that future generations do know. And that's why I believe that Rabbi Oshry said you can't take the tattoo off of your arm. Not that you should live for the rest of your life in trauma, but that you should live the rest of your life with the responsibility of sharing the story. And for those who in my particular breakout room shared their stories, I want to thank you. And I want to thank Peter, you again, because many people were inspired by what you shared to share their own stories again. And I pray that we have the opportunity to share these stories again and again and again, so that future generations know what happened and know the responsibility that we have, not just to tell the story, but to act on the story and make sure that something like this, like the Shoah, never happens again. So I'm going to thank everyone for joining us, and just bear with us for a few more minutes as we turn to a little bit of the ritual side of memory. And I invite Cantor Brooke to lead us in the memorial prayer in the El Malei Rachamim. And if we're able to, let's please rise for the El Malei Rachamim.
Malei Rachamim, Shachain Madramim, Hamtzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Memalot Kedoshim Udarim Megiborim, ושלום על משכבו ונאמר
Exalted, compassionate God, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, whose radiance is like the heavens, to the souls of all those we remember this evening. The men, the women, the children who were slaughtered, burned, and killed in the Shoah and the Holocaust. May their memory be a blessing. May they rest in paradise. Master of mercy, may they find eternal shelter beneath your sheltering wings, and may their souls be bound up in the bond of life. God is their portion. May they rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. We'll recite Mourner's Kaddish together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah. Ve'omad divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala uv'izman kari v'yimaru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam leomel maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei dekudesha barichu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata la'amiran be'alma v'yimaru amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the one who creates peace on high bring peace to us, to all of Israel, to all who dwell on earth. And let us say, Amen. Friends, I want to thank you for joining us this evening and thank the members of our team who were here, to Cantor Brook, to Rabbi Savinar, to Mara, to Karin. I want to thank you all, and of course to our guests, our speakers. I want to thank you for your stories that you shared again. The project of memory continues. It's an obligation that we all share as we move into Yom Hashoah and next week into Yom Zikaron. Thank you again for being here, and I wish you all a good night.